How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today for my weekly upload, I've been looking at UFC 319. I've been looking at some of the fights that have been announced, and I thought I would take the mantle of trying to build a card for this pay-per-view. It's happening in Chicago, Illinois. The main event, of course, being Dricus and Khamzat. We'll get to that eventually. But I can make some fights for this card, I feel, and I think that I think you guys will really enjoy what I have to say. For the most part, maybe some of the matchups you're not going to agree with, maybe the timing doesn't match up, but let's get right into this. The first prelim, like I said, like I usually do, 5 prelims, 5 fights on the main card, I give you 10 fights, they might add 2 more, There's a couple fights already announced for this, so I'm probably going to go through most of those right now. The first fight that I have is Alexander Hernandez versus Chase Hooper. This is an official fight. In these picks, in these card builders, I don't just make the cards. I actually give some breakdowns and thoughts on the fights early. I think Chase Hooper's probably going to win this decently easily, if I'm being honest with you. Alexander Hernandez has honestly looked pretty bad in his last couple of performances, arguably losing to Austin Hubbard and fucking Kurt Hollaba, who we've seen get beat in better fashion by not great fighters. I think that the grappling in this fight is going to be kind of wild, and Hernandez might struggle with the long, rangy striking of Chase Hooper early on. I think it has high chance for a finish. We've seen Hernandez break against people, and I think Chase Hooper has that grappling style, if it does get to the ground, that just completely wears on people. I think this is a step up for Chase Hooper. Obviously, Jim Miller and Clay Guida back-to-back. He fought Jim Miller at, was it 314, I want to say? And then he fought Clay Guida at 310. So, he's making steps up. He's going from the unks to the forgotten prospects of the lightweight division. I think he might win. If Hernandez wins, it'll probably be by, knockout, but I don't see that happening. The next fight I have for you is actually an original idea. Cesar Almeida versus Marco Tulio. I was watching some of these knockout compilations from this year, and one that everyone has at number 2 or number 1 of their tier list is going to be Cesar Almeida's knockout over Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and he doesn't have a fight booked since then, and it's kind of making me sad because I think Cesar Almeida is unironically one of the most entertaining unranked middleweights on the roster when he's fighting someone who's also game. The Ihor Potieria fight, drama excluded, was actually pretty entertaining. The Roman Kopylov fight, besides maybe the Kopylov grappling, I think the striking was actually very entertaining in that fight. And then the Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight was crazy. Cesar Almeida always brings it, and you give him a guy like Marco Tulio, who's a prospect that you have coming up. You have 2 of these guys who are surging contenders at middleweight. Cesar Almeida, I believe, is 3-1 in the UFC. Marco Tulio 2-0. Marco Tulio took essentially no damage against Tresean Gore at 314. And you have a guy like Cesar Almeida, who is a striker first, and Marco Tulio, who we've seen can grapple, but in the UFC has just been really entertaining the striking exchanges and beating the shit out of Ihor and Tresean. I think this fight's instant fireworks, whether or not it's a finish or not. I think it's a go 3 rounds and still be very entertaining. I think no matter what happens, I think it's going to be fucking a slugfest, a technical slugfest, though. I don't know who wins. I would probably lean towards Marco Tulio because Cesar Almeida we've seen get dropped a couple more times in the UFC. We've seen Roman drop him. We saw Abdul drop him bad in their fight. But if I'm just thinking objectively, I think that this will be very entertaining. And I think that Marco Tulio might edge it out. Also, he's younger, so that might also play a part. The next fight, already announced, Bryan Battle, Nursultan Ruziboev. Kind of a weird fight, in my opinion. I don't know why Bryan Battle is fighting Nursultan after beating Randy Brown, albeit very competitive, close fight, arguable decision towards Randy Brown, but I think this could go bad for Bryan, but I think that he will win. I think he beats Nursultan, but if there is a fight that could backfire on Bryan Battle, that it doesn't really get him anywhere if he wins. I know Nursultan's 4-1 in the UFC, I believe. He's kind of getting a streak going of his own. But it's not like this. This might give him a rank shot next, but I don't think Nursultan's like crazy highly ranked. You know, the only people he's beat in the UFC are not great fighters. Brian Battle's a surging contender, hasn't lost since the Renat Fakhretdinov fight so long ago. I just kind of don't really get this matchup. If he wins, he wins, but I don't really think this gets him, like, does a lot for him. Nursultan has everything to gain in this fight. It seems like his two big step-ups in competition have always kind of been that. Like, he has everything to gain. The Bruno Ferreira fight, you could even argue, was like that, where he was just stepping up. I think it was short notice and kind of just stepped in and knocked him out. And then the Joaquin Buckley fight, short notice, and now this. So, Nursultan getting another big opportunity. Let's see if he can capitalize. But Brian Battle, I think that the cardio and the just overall output might be a bit too much. And Brian's pretty big. So, next fight, already official as well. Tim Elliott versus Kaya Sakura. I actually said that they should make this for that Baku card in the next 2 weeks. They decided to put it on a pay-per-view. I think I gave my thoughts on this. This is a very polarizing fight. It can go really one of two ways. Asakura may be chinning Tim Elliott, which is going to be hard because Tim Elliott has a good chin, or Tim Elliott is just able to out-grapple, like just severely out-grapple Kaya Sakura, maybe sub him. But I don't know. I think it is wild. Kaya Sakura is going to go from main eventing to pay-per-view to the prelims, most likely. Should be fun on the feet. Tim's very awkward to deal with, awkward MMA, and then Kaya Sakura just has that power. So we'll see what happens. Featured prelim. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's not a lot of like openings available. I just rebooked Martin Budai versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. Not the greatest featured prelim, I know. You could honestly throw Tim Elliott, Kaya Sakura above this, or just another fight, honestly. There is not a lot of fights, in my opinion, available that could serve as a feature prelim that would satisfy all the fans. Rankings-wise, you could, of course, put together a featured prelim that doesn't consist of rankings. A fight I'm about to show to start the main card, I think, could serve as that. Just a very entertaining slugfest. I think this fight, I think it makes sense to rebook. Martin Budai had a very, wild fight with Uran Saltibadiev. Kennedy Nzechukwu, probably ready to go by August. So just rebook this fight. Doesn't have to be the feature prelim, but you get the point. Main card, brought to you by Nobody 2. I don't know if that's going to be the movie. It's coming out August 15th. So it's, I think, the day before 3/19. So it very well could. To start the main card, this main card is going to be very weird matchups. I'll be honest with you. 3/19, I have a weird feeling that this card's going to be kind of bad. This was my attempt at trying to make like a somewhat like, oh shit, those are weird matchups, but like that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Kind of make that type of card. To open up the card, 2 unranked featherweights, a fan favorite on one side, a surging contender on the other. I made Cub Swanson versus Gabriel Santos. I know Cub Swanson hinted that he's retiring at Tampa Bay. I think this fight's badass, though. I think you have a very good striker in Cub Swanson versus a younger, thriving contender in Gabriel Santos, who has put on 2 back-to-back performances that are super entertaining, one of which was in front of a crowd at 312 against Jack Jenkins, which was one of the better prelim fights, even though the prelims were kind of stacked, way better than the main card. But Gabriel Santos had a career-defining performance there. And then, before that, he beat the shit out of Yi Zha in a very entertaining fight that was in the Apex. Give him some spotlight. I think Gabriel Santos has the ability to be a very good contender at featherweight. Giving him Cub Swanson, giving him that, that gritty gritty veteran in Cub Swanson, who always is entertaining whether he's winning or losing. The Billy Quarantillo fight was badass. This fight, I think, would serve a lot like that. We've seen Gabriel Santos get knocked out before, albeit by David Onama, who does hit hard. But Cub Swanson, I mean, he laid the fuck out of Billy Quarantillo. So who really knows at the end of the day? I think it'd be a striker's delight. I think Cub Swanson and Gabriel would kind of just slug out, kind of go toe-to-toe in the center of the octagon and kind of just swing at each other. And I think it'd be very entertaining. I think that Gabriel would most likely win. But this could serve as like a Frankie Edgar kind of send-off where you give him a final fight, put him on the main card of a pay-per-view, kind of give Cub Swanson that, that friendly, that fan-friendly, send-off. Don't put him in the Apex if he is going to retire, if he has one more fight left. If he does just retire, there's no reason for this matchup. Put Gabriel Santos versus somebody else. But I think that this fight would be very entertaining. It has that very likable veteran and Cub Swanson on one side that all the old heads are going to get behind. He's probably going to be an underdog. People are going to be like, yo, pick Cub Swanson, you bet on him. And Gabriel Santos, who is just violence every time that he's in the cage. So, yeah, I think this fight would be a good way to open up the main card. Not like, I think it's going to be a weird pay-per-view. Like I said, this fight should never be on a main card of a pay-per-view, but I think 319 is going to be a weird one. The next fight, it's got rumored today. And I think if you're peeping game with MMA media, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Paige is for some reason in the works. It's rumored for 319. I think it's just going to... It was the same thing with Michael versus Shara Bullet, where it was like, they're not even in the same division. Why are they going to make that fight? I actually really like this fight. I think Michael, unironically, is better at middleweight. He's going to be the fastest guy every single time in the division. Against Jared Cannonier, huge step up from a Shara Bullet. Don't get me wrong. Two old heads. Jared's going to try and knock the fuck out of Michael Venom Paige. He has the power to do so, coming off a great performance. Not a great performance, but a really hard-fought win over Gregory Rodriguez to a Michael Venom Paige who does have power but doesn't throw as much. I think that we could see a Jared Cannonier grapple. Maybe he tries to wrestle Michael Venom Paige like he did against Marvin Vettori and Nasruddin Imavov. Or we could just see Cannonier get slightly outstruck by Michael Venom Paige. Michael kind of being way in or way out, kind of just like dancing around. I think it would kind of be cool, like theatrics-wise. I think in the build-up they'd be kind of respectful, but Michael Venom Paige will try and bring it. But yeah, I think that this fight is going to probably be very fun. It could be very fun. It's very half and half with Michael Venom Paige. You'd never know if he's going to be like, to be fair, he hasn't had like a crazy entertaining fight outside of maybe the Kevin Holland fight where like he was kind of beating the shit out of Kevin. The Ian Gary fight was kind of bad. The Shara fight was kind of bad too. Like people can barely hit him. That's the thing with Michael Venom Paige, which is very good. But also it's like nobody hits him. Like it's like a Shakur Stevenson in a way, but he's like so far out and he just kind of barges in. So we'll see what happens. I think this fight is going to be put on 319. 319 I think is going to need a lot of help, especially at the top of the bill, because it is a DDP pay-per-view at the end of the day, which for some reason, I don't know what it is, they always kind of suck, like undercard-wise. I don't know what it is. 312 had great prelims. Name value was shit, though. 305, main card wasn't that bad, like, let's be honest. But the prelims were kind of, like, it's like weirdly out of place cards that just kind of are put together. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but, like, they're just kind of thrown together. 297 really felt that way. Like, it was just kind of, like, all over the place. My featured fight for 319 is a fight that's also rumored. Maybe not for 319. I think this is the fight they're going to make, though. Michael Chandler versus Mauricio Rufy. I think this is a badass fight. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Michael Chandler deserves to fight down again. He needs to fight an unranked fighter. He does not deserve an up-the-rankings fight anymore. He needs to pay back to the UFC or the lightweight division for all these years that he's kind of just been at the top. He's number 12 now. You could do either him versus Rufy, him versus Ziam, but the thing is with the Ziam fight, and I wanted to put so many other guys on here. I wanted to put a Manuel Torres fight on here. I wanted to put a Fares Ziam fight on here. But when you look at the placement of August, you look literally 3 weeks ahead. You have UFC Paris and UFC Noche. They're going to save those guys for those cards. You know what I'm saying? Like Fares Ziam is probably going to be like a co-main event of that Paris card. Like, let's be honest. Or maybe like a featured fight. But this fight, Chandler Rufy, you could put it on literally fucking anything and it will sell. Rufi at the peak of his value, like marketability, coming off the wheel kick KO over Bobby Green. The Fighting Nerds are crazy outside of Carlos losing in April, and he's still the biggest moment from that fight was him almost finishing Ian Gary, surprisingly enough. Like, that's all people remember about that fight, which is, like, kind of bullshit because Ian Gary styled on him for, like, 3.5 rounds. But Mauricio, huge prospect in that lightweight division, huge marketability, 2 finishes, crazy beating of Jamie Malarkey, went to war with James Yontop. Coming off the Bobby Green KO, they're going to give him someone big. I think Michael Chandler's in that perfect position where he's just washed enough that Rufi is going to be able to put him away. I think Rufi would win. Chandler also has the power to maybe upset Rufi. That's always the thing with Michael Chandler, is he has that power and that ability to just fluke something crazy. I think this would be a performance where Mauricio Rufi would kind of show levels in the striking technical ability, though. And to be honest, this featured fight, you could literally put any of the Fighting Nerds, and I think it would sell. John Silva versus somebody. Not Kaio. I don't think Kaio is going to be on this card. I think Kaio is going to be on a card later in the year. Maybe against Nasruddin Imavov. I wouldn't mind that being the main event of Paris. But then you could also put Carlos Prates on here as well versus a Jeff Neal. You know what I mean? Like, or him versus, who's another welterweight that would kind of be cool? Not Gilbert. Gilbert needs to fight somebody else, but I like this fight a lot. I think this is the fight they're going to make. Maybe not for 319, maybe a 320 edition in Vegas, but I think that this fight is going to be on 319 or 320. It's definitely a pay-per-view fight, so we're just going to have to wait and see. Co-main event of 319. This guy just fought, but when you see what the UFC does sometimes, Joshua Van, for example, is fighting Brandon Royval now at 317. A guy made a call out, and it's not unrealistic because we saw Colby Covington fight Joaquin Buckley on 3 weeks' notice. You are insane if you think that he wouldn't take a Kevin Holland fight at that on 2 months' notice. Not a full camp, but just enough to kind of... I love this fight. 5-round co-main event of 319, Colby Covington versus Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is such a weird fighter because he's not even really all that crazy good. He's so marketable, though, because everyone kind of know. If you're just like an avid watcher of the UFC, you don't watch every you don't watch every card, you watch almost every pay-per-view, you kind of are just in tune. You know who Kevin Holland is. He's kind of just like the big mouth of the division. He also said that he has fight news. I don't know if that's him bullshitting or not. I think that it is going to be Colby Covington that he does get next. If not Colby Covington, I would love a fight between Kevin Holland. You could arguably put him against Carlos Prates, honestly. Or Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown. Either of those fights are also good. I like the Colby Covington fight more. 1, it's in the rankings. 2, I honestly think Colby would lose. I think Kevin would beat him. And I like seeing Colby lose. I'm a huge... I don't know if you see who my profile picture is. I'm not the biggest Colby Covington fan. I love seeing Kevin Holland win. He's one of the boys. I like Kevin Holland as a fighter. I saw him. He's one of the fighters I've met in person. He's a chill guy. But yeah, I think that the press conference for this fight would be nuts. Colby would, this guy's a fucking scumbag. This guy's a bitch. Nobody even fucking knows who he is. He's big mouth, fucking 45-70, what's that, your fucking record? He'll do some shit like that. Kevin Holland will be like, yeah, keep talking, yeah, I'm gonna beat your ass. Yeah, he does that like really passive-aggressive shit talk, you know what I mean? But I think this fight would be entertaining, honestly. I think even the grappling would be cool, because Holland has that weird, really lanky frame that allows him to scramble really well, especially at welterweight. He does it so much better at welterweight. I'm so glad he's realizing this, that he's a professional. He needs to stay at 170. His scrambling ability at 185 just isn't good enough just because he's not strong enough for 185ers. 170, they're weak enough to where Kevin Holland, he's not the strongest guy, but he's so good, like, scrambling ability. And Colby Covington is obviously going to wrestle in this fight. The striking, honestly, will be kind of weird, though. Because Colby has, like, somewhat decent boxing. But who knows at the end of the day. And, of course, the main event for 319, Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. I've kind of already given my take on this fight. I think Chimaev wins. I think he does it in the first or second round. I think he subs Dricus. I think this could go bad for Khamzat if it does go yard, of course, because Dricus has the best cardio at 185. I think it's a weird thing to say that because he looks so tired, but dude, he just keeps going. He just keeps going, and that's the thing with Dricus, is that he doesn't stop doing things, which is why I like him as a fighter. Khamzat, always going to be the talk of fight week every single time. You don't know if he's going to be able to make it or not, which is why I'm praying that he does make it to this fight week, because I think Chimaev as the champion, it is kind of sad, because I think everyone, as a fan of the UFC, has kind of grown to like Dricus as champion of the middleweight division, just because he's always kind of in good fights. Like, the first Strickland fight, it was somewhat untechnical in moments, but dude, it was fun. The Israel Adesanya fight was crazy entertaining. The rematch with Strickland, even though no one cared, it was a good watch, just because it was like, damn, Dricus is beating the shit out of him. You know what I mean? Like, Dricus is always kind of in good fights. I think this will be a good fight. But I do think Chimaev is probably going to win. Just because I think that he is the phenom that we've all been waiting to find in the UFC, where he just comes in and does whatever he wants for the most part. So, UFC 319, I think it's going to be kind of a weird, lackluster pay-per-view. I think that it either is going to be at the level of this, with maybe just some different faces, or it could be worse, I'll be honest with you. There's another fight that I forgot to mention. Karine Silva versus JJ Aldrich is on here. I didn't want to cover that just because who gives a fuck, you know what I mean? But yeah, 319. This is my main card. So you got DDP Chimaev, Covington Holland, 5 rounds. Chandler Roofy, of course, to get Roofy into the rankings. Cannonier Paige is like rumored, but almost confirmed. And then Swanson Santos. Maybe not a main card fight. Maybe you could exchange this with something else. But I think like they're going to do a slugfest kind of unranked kind of prospect kind of fight to start the card. But my prelims are this. Not the greatest prelims. You have a lot of entertaining, like Almeida Tulio should be good, Battle Ruziboev should be good, Hernandez Hooper should be good, Elliot Asakor has the ability to be good. This, like, bro, it's just what I gotta work with. But 319, it is what it is. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see me do next. This weekend, of course, UFC Atlanta, Usman vs. Buckley. My picks and breakdown will be out for you either tomorrow or Thursday. But, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.